Welcome to Family Health by Mini First Aid. Mini First Aid are the UK's leading family first aid provider, and we are delighted to bring our latest podcast series to you, giving you all the information that you need around family health subjects. Thanks for joining. The Family Health Podcast is brought to you in partnership with Things Happen, a trusted financial advisor that supports new parents and their families. Things Happen offer the best advice to help parents and their families make informed financial decisions, ensuring a secure and tax-efficient future for their children. The team at Things Happen are highly qualified financial experts who will guide you through the different types of policies to consider as your family expands, taking the stress out of decision-making by finding the best deals for your needs, ensuring you and your family are protected no matter how busy life gets. If you already have life insurance, Things Happen will carefully review your existing policy to ensure that it still meets your family's evolving needs, so you know your family is fully protected. Hello, I'm Kate and I am the founder of Mini First Aid, and welcome to our podcast, Family Health by Mini First Aid. I'm thrilled that you've taken the time to listen to the podcast, whether you're in the car, perhaps you're cleaning the house, or maybe you're relaxing with a cuppa, or you're on your way to work. Our Family Health podcast covers a huge range of topics that might affect one of your family members. And if you've ever got a family health concern and are thinking, I'm going to Google it, please don't Google it. Have a listen to us instead. I'm thrilled today to announce that our guest this week is Aliya Porter, who is a mum of 3 and a registered nutritionist who runs Porter Nutrition and Weaning Centre. She is passionate about helping parents with nutrition advice from their journey to becoming parents to pregnancy and beyond. And she's here to talk to us about all things weaning and nutrition today. So Aliya, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you came to do what you're doing now.
Yeah. So as you said, I'm a mum of 3. My eldest is 14. I've got one in the middle and a 3-year-old as well. So a range of different ages. And I wear a number of voluntary hats as well. So on a Monday morning, I'm running a toddler group. I'm helping in the park on Sunday sometimes. So I do all sorts of things, but my passion around nutrition really started from doing it at school. So learning about nutrition from home economics. And then I just decided I kind of wanted to try doing it at degree level, and did that alongside German at degree level, not nutrition in German, but nutrition and German. And I love helping people. So nutrition is a great way of doing that. And food, we all have to eat, don't we? So it's good to know what we're eating.
We have so many listeners with babies and young children, parents, pregnant women who are trying for a baby, all listening to our show, and there will be a wealth. In fact, we've got a wealth of questions for you. Some of those have come in from some of our listeners on questions about concerns and the right nutrition and the stages and all the things, the minefield that we find ourselves in. So I'm delighted that you're going to help me tackle some of those questions today. Yeah. Let's talk first of all about pregnancy, and let's talk about nutrients and vitamins that are helpful when people are trying to conceive or are pregnant. Can you talk us through about what's happening with our bodies and what sort of things we need to be thinking about with our eating and our drinking?
Yeah, lots of questions in there.
There are.
First of all, it's important to say that overall health is really, really important. So it is about what we eat, but it's also about thinking about stress and exercise and sleep as well as food, and broader health, obviously, as well. Obviously, each month our bodies are preparing. If we're having periods, then we're preparing for the possibility of pregnancy. So if we're not getting enough nutrition, our bodies won't actually have periods. And so it's important that if you're not having periods, that you speak to your doctor about that. If you're expecting you should be having periods. And if we are going to conceive, we may not know about that. Well, we won't know about that straight away. Generally, we kind of find out a few weeks into pregnancy. So it's important that whether we're hoping to get pregnant or we are pregnant, that we're actually thinking about nutrition more broadly. So maximising our nutrition before pregnancy. Lots of pregnancies are not planned. So actually for women of childbearing age, it's good to be thinking about nutrition generally in case you get pregnant. And it's also important to think about, men's nutrition as well. So it's not just women's nutrition, but the men as well, because nutrition can have an impact on sperm health as well. So in terms of women, I don't want to kind of focus on specific nutrients and say you have to have this one and don't have to this one. We're thinking about more broadly in the diet, but there are some specific nutrients to be mindful of.
Okay.
So one of them is iron.
Yeah.
Obviously, when producing blood each month, we're losing blood each month. We need to make sure our iron levels are really good. And actually, the evidence suggests that there's a significant proportion of women who are below the recommended intake. We're looking at, in kind of adult women, about 75% of women don't get enough iron in their diet. So it's a significant amount. That doesn't mean that all those women are going to be anemic. But it does mean that we're not in an optimal nutrition position. So iron's something to consider. Iron-rich foods are things like red meat. You can also get iron from oily fish and nuts, particularly kind of almonds are quite good for iron. And then there is some iron in spinach, well, Popeye the Sailor Man,
Yeah, they used to empty the tin, a whole tin.
But actually, the iron isn't absorbed as well from plant sources as it is from meat sources. So we can absorb it better if we have vitamin C alongside.
Okay.
But iron is something to consider. I wouldn't recommend you take supplements unless you're advised to specifically, particularly with iron supplements, because they can cause constipation and some nasty side effects in that sense. So get some advice if you are thinking about iron supplementation. Another important nutrient is vitamin D,
right.
And that's important for all of us in England, particularly.
From
we don't
the sun,
get enough
or
sun.
a lack of sun. I'm looking out the window this morning, and it's grey in Yorkshire. It's really grey.
Yeah, so vitamin D they recommend all adults take in the autumn and winter months, so from October to April. But in pregnancy, they recommend take it all throughout pregnancy. And if you're covering your skin for any reason or you're staying inside a lot, then to take it all year round.
Right.
So vitamin D's good for bone health, but it's also actually in pregnancy important for birth weight. So it can actually... Deficiency can cause low birth weight, which is not great in babies, and possibly preeclampsia as well. So important to take the vitamin D supplementation.
Brilliant.
And then folate, which if you're reading around pregnancy, you'll see recommendations around folic acid supplements, and supplements should be taken before pregnancy and in pregnancy. The reason we take it before pregnancy is actually because most of the benefit is before you know you're pregnant. So you take it up to 12 weeks of pregnancy, but that's specifically around neural tube defects and trying to reduce the risk of neural tube defects. And again, a number of women, so we're looking at kind of almost 90% of women don't have enough to lower their risk of preeclampsia without taking the folic acid supplement. So a key one there.
Yeah.
And then more generally, things like B vitamins, vitamin A, zinc, which in vegans is particularly important to kind of make sure you get your beans and your legumes to make sure your zinc levels are up, and omega-3 for brain development as well. So lots of different ones. I could go into a lot more detail, but
yeah,
I think
of course.
some key ones
I was going to ask you.
Focus on.
So I know, obviously, you said with the iron supplement, it's better to get that from a source that's in your diet.
Yeah.
That I didn't tell you this when this question was coming, but I'm just, that you have pregnancy supplements that have basically a claim that say everything you need. Some of those names that you've mentioned there. Mm-hmm. Does that cover the basis if you're taking a pregnancy supplement, or should you have that in addition to the balanced diet? How does it work?
Yeah, so a good question about pregnancy supplements. The first thing to say is if you are planning to get pregnant or you are pregnant, it's important if you are going to take a supplement to take one that is safe for pregnancy.
Right. Because
vitamin A, I mentioned vitamin A being good.
Yeah.
If you take vitamin A supplements, they can also be damaging to the baby. So from a food perspective, you want to make sure you've got vitamin A, but you don't want to have it in a supplement. So a regular supplement isn't suitable for pregnant women.
Brilliant.
It's an important first thing to say.
Yeah.
Secondly, you don't have to take a supplement in pregnancy, except vitamin D and folic acid.
Right.
So you could save your money and buy those ones because they tend to be cheaper. In terms of those wider kind of supplements, yes, they include lots of different things, but absorption rates will vary, and our diet isn't just about those specific nutrients. So it's important we have a broad, balanced diet anyway. I know we're going to come on to pregnancy in more detail, but actually fibre is something to consider. So you've asked about specific kind of nutrients, but and I focused on the micronutrients first. Fibre, in pregnancy, you can more likely get constipation. And it's not very nice. Having had 3 babies,
Yes.
if you get constipated, then it's not very pleasant when you're feeling quite full and with baby anyway. And both in pregnancy and postnatally, fibre can really help. The recommendation in the UK for adults is 30 grams of fibre a day.
Right.
The average is about 18 grams in terms of what people are actually taking, or eating.
So where is it? What's fibre rich? Where can you find it?
So things like legumes, so beans, peas, lentils, really good for fibre. But fruit and vegetables as well. Some contain more fibre than others. And then whole grain, so your brown pasta, brown rice. They're not going to contain as much as the legumes. So the legumes are really good to get in regularly. Obviously a good sustainable plant-based protein. And if you're not that keen on those, you can always add them in alongside a meat. So in your bolognese, put some lentils in, or make a chili con carne with beans in it as well, to try and increase the fibre. But we need to have at least 5 portions of fruit and veg a day, plus those whole grains and legumes to get that fibre. And actually, if you were just to have fruit and veg, you're looking at more like 9-10 portions of fruit and veg a day, which
wow, my eyes just if
so.
you're not watching this, if you're listening, everything was in my face at 9-10, because we've all been, the whole 5 a day campaign has been pretty well drilled into us, hasn't it? So gosh.
And it's hard for some people to get 5 a day anyway, so to try and say get to 10 is completely unrealistic for most people. So better to get the fibre from really rich sources like legumes and beans alongside your fruit and veg.
So in pregnancy, does it differ for what your body needs at different stages? Do you need different amounts of vitamins and requirements for your body, fibre levels, all that sort of thing at different stages of a pregnancy, or does it stay the same?
It varies slightly,
right.
And I could go into kind of specific detail, but I think that the thing to focus on is you don't need more calories until the 3rd trimester.
Okay.
And often people talk about, eating for 2. Think about eating for 2 in terms of micronutrients rather than in terms of calories. And I don't want you to start calorie counting, but in terms of thinking, what am I actually eating that's giving nourishment to my baby and to me? So rather than thinking, I'm going to have the extra slice of toast because I'm feeling hungry, think about what can I have with that toast to make it really nutrient rich. So could I put some peanut butter on that toast? Could I put some hummus on that toast rather than putting the jam on the toast, which doesn't give you any extra nutrients but is nice. So I'm not saying don't have jam,
sugary.
And I'm not saying don't have sugar either. I think that's not a message that is particularly helpful, but think about it trying to maximise what you're getting from the extra snack that you're having. If you're a bit peckish and you kind of are trying to knock down that feeling of sickness, you can either go for something that's kind of dry and kind of cracker based, or you could go potentially in the more crunchy vegetable sense. For some reason I loved eating iceberg lettuce when I was pregnant, and I had I had hyperemesis 3 times,
right.
So it was very, very sick. For some reason things that were really crunchy and quite bland in terms of flavour, so sugar snap peas and lettuce seemed to be helpful at certain points. That's not to say I didn't eat crisps. I ate far too many crisps, and I can't eat crisps now because I ate too many during pregnancy. But you've got to think about trying to make sure you're hydrated, and obviously getting salt replacement as well when you're being sick so many times. But it may be helpful to think about other things that you could also have in whether you're sick or not, and hopefully you're not too sick.
Yeah. Gosh, it's a lot to think about, isn't it? And do you find, in your experience professionally, that the midwives now that we see, are they equipped with this sort of information? Because I know I knew. I mean, my eldest child is 13 now, but my youngest is 5, and I did notice changes in recommendations. So I wasn't recommended vitamin D, for example, years ago, but I was for my youngest set of twins. Are the midwives kept up to speed with nutrition in their training? Does that happen?
They do have some training.
Right.
Bear in mind, midwives are completely overstretched, so I don't want to bash the midwives, because that's not helpful. They do cover things like foods to avoid during pregnancy, so that's really important. And they will, if you're of a certain BMI, body mass index, they may refer you to additional services, because the risks in pregnancy can be higher if you are of a certain weight.
Right.
That's not that everybody will have those risks, but the general kind of trend is that those risks do go up.
Okay.
So there are additional services. I would love to see more nutrition input for pregnant women. That's one of the reasons that I developed the postnatal nutrition workshop that I run, because actually thinking about nutrition postnatally as well, during pregnancy, that session is run during pregnancy, helps you to kind of think about, how do we nurture our bodies, how do we recover from pregnancy, but also how do we do that in between. And in terms of pregnancy, I've got a free resource on my website.
Great.
I know we're going to put the links in.
We are, yes. We'll signpost everybody.
That's got it's a 4-page download that it's free, and that goes through all the kind of pregnancy nutrition things to think about. It's very, very focused on being practical, so I don't want you to read it and think I've got to overhaul my whole diet.
Yeah, of course.
There's enough going on in pregnancy without having to have that extra pressure, but hopefully some things in there that will help to signpost as well.
Aliya, that's really helpful. And in fact, you gave us a perfect segue there, because we were now going to talk about postnatal, because there will be people listening that have had their babies.
Before we do, can I just say about men, because I know they often get forgotten.
Yes, and we are a family podcast, of course, yes.
So in terms of fertility, because that was the question initially, and obviously we've talked about all sorts of things, but the nutrients to focus on with men, obviously general health is important. So in terms of weight, actually being overweight or underweight can have an impact on sperm health. So being a healthy weight can be helpful. Increasing fruit and vegetable intake, because those antioxidants will reduce oxidative damage that might cause sperm damage in terms of sperm quality, but also DNA damage within the sperm itself. Vitamin C and iron, again, really important for sperm quality. And then reducing the amount of saturated fat and trans fats in the diet can be helpful in terms of concentration of sperms and sperm count.
Okay.
So having a general balanced diet is important, and reducing or limiting processed meat, because again that has an impact on sperm quality as well. So lots of things to think about, but it's important that we don't forget the men, because I think we often put the emphasis on the women.
Hugely
when
so.
It comes to
Hugely
fertility.
So. I think
you
think about, when you think about pregnancy, you think about the woman, because it's her body, but the conception part involves sperm that need to be fit and healthy, right? So what's the signposting or the education process for men who are considering parenthood?
There isn't really.
Right. So you heard it here first. There we go. We need to we need to listen here.
I developed a workshop which I don't run very regularly, but it's I'd like to run it more regularly, which is aimed at people who are getting married and thinking about how food links in with culture within our marriage.
Right.
And so that's not just married couples, that's also cohabiting and couples, but that also covers some of the things to think about in terms of preconception, because not everybody gets married after they have children, but it starts starting to think about those conversations. So that's where I've placed it within what I do. There is some, if you are struggling with fertility and you get support, they will be talking to you a bit about.
I was
diet,
going to say that. I think at that point, if you are struggling, then that's the point where or if you're looking at interventions to help you support with pregnancy, then that's the point where they're going to start looking at your health and what have you.
Yeah.
But
not more generally.
Not more generally, yeah. And not when you're just thinking about it at home. Gosh, that's fascinating. That's really fascinating. Thank you. So when we talk about postnatal and recovery, now I'm a mum of 6 and 2 of those pregnancies were twins.
Wow.
So I've had twins twice. And so what my body has been through and had to recover from is quite significant. But that's the case for all of us. Are there specific nutrients that we lack at this and things that we perhaps need for our physical but also our emotional recovery after our bodies have had a baby?
Yeah. And congratulations on 6. I think that's very impressive.
It's very nice of you to say congratulations. Most people just go, oh my gosh, wow. Yes, thank you.
I'm definitely, people ask me if I'm going to have more and I'm like, no, I can't. 3 times of being very sick, I'm not going to do it again.
Don't want to do it again.
The first thing to remember with postnatal is you've got a baby or multiple babies to look after, so it's hard to look after yourself. And I think when we're thinking about which nutrients to include, it's important to bring in other people who might be helping you, and hopefully you have got some help. Not everybody does, not everyone's privileged in that situation, but if there's someone helping you with cooking, if there's someone helping you with shopping, or even if you're thinking about what you can do to prepare for after birth, so when you're pregnant and you're in that kind of nesting time, thinking about people who might batch cook, what can you have in the freezer that's ready, that's going to nourish you, that's not going to take ages to prepare. So in terms of the recovery, it really depends on the type of birth that you've had. But a significant number of women go through birth and lose blood. Everybody loses some blood, but some lose a lot of blood.
Yes.
So replacing, making sure you've got plenty of iron-rich foods in your diet. Obviously, we've talked about iron already. Then thinking about vitamin C as well. So vitamin C is really helpful for repairing wounds, and lots of women will have stitches or tears or C-section stitches as well, that then need to be supported in recovery. And the evidence says that if you have optimal vitamin C intake, then that recovery can be quicker and better. That's not to say you have to go and take a vitamin C supplement. It just means make sure you get some fresh fruit and vegetables into your diet, or frozen fruit and vegetables. So frozen fruit and vegetables are nice and easy because they've already been chopped up, and they've had those nutrients locked in. Try not to cook your vegetables for too long, otherwise you'll lose your vitamin C in that cooking process. But yeah, try and get those. Can you get vitamin C up.
What about fruit juice? So fresh squeezed fruit juice, does that give you the same supply of vitamin C?
It will, but it doesn't help so much with fibre, which I will come on to because that's important. But so yes, fruit juice, but limit that to 150 mils of fruit juice a day, because you're not getting as much fibre from it, and so you don't want to just be having fruit juice. But yes, you can have, so juice is good as well. Great. You can also use tinned fruit, but I would recommend generally fresh or frozen, particularly for vitamin C. Great. And then I said I'd mention fibre. So after you've had stitches, if you've had stitches, or even if you haven't had stitches down below, you can be quite sore. Yes. The last thing you want is to be straining because you're a bit constipated. It's really common, and it's really common also after a birth that's, you're feeling very, very sore, and you might hold on to and not pass the stool as you need to. Or you're busy and you don't pass the stool as you need to, so it gets harder. So increasing your fibre intake. Obviously, I've mentioned already how much, but that's a really, really important part of recovery as well. And making sure you're really well hydrated. So this is if you're breastfeeding or not breastfeeding, making sure you've got plenty of fluid going into you for that reason, but also in terms of recovery as well, can be really helpful. So having a bottle of water by your bed, getting someone to refill that, putting bottles of water even around the house so you can access them as you need to, and you're not constantly having to go and fill up a glass. Yes. Bottles of water are also helpful because when you're in the night, kind of flailing your arms around when you can't have really sleep deprived.
You don't want a glass of water going all over the duvet. No. We've all been there.
And then 2 other nutrients to think about with zinc. So I mentioned zinc earlier for vegans, but actually including meat, shellfish, eggs in the diet as well helps with recovery, and omega-3 as well, so from oily fish. And we're recommended to have 2 portions of oily fish a week. So this is another great one for batch cooking. Things like fish pies or curries with fish in them. Ideally, that we're going for having a portion of regular fish and a portion of oily fish, or up to 2 portions of oily fish. And a portion is 140 grams, so quite a significant amount of fish in the diet. So if you're cooking a meal, if you're listening to this thinking, oh, I'm not pregnant and I haven't got a baby, but I can help somebody, giving them a meal of something with salmon in or mackerel, obviously make sure they're not allergic first.
Yeah, of course.
But making sure they've got omega-3 meals that they can eat. If you are allergic to fish or you don't eat fish for some reason, things like flax seeds, pumpkin seeds and walnuts will also contain some omega-3. So you need to get those into your diet regularly.
And can you just eat them as if like a snack? Can you just eat them? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's good.
Or sprinkle them onto cereal or something like that.
Yeah, sure. I put them on my I put flax on my porridge and pumpkin seeds as well. And I love it, and I have done for years. But that's interesting about you saying when people are helping you, because I remember people saying to me, can I bring you something? And actually, if you go, and it needs to be this. Can you make me this? If you can be assertive and say to people, actually, I'd love you to make me something, or you're offering to make me something, but make it with, these are the nutrients that my body needs right now. Can
you make me a fruit salad?
That's
because cutting up fruit with one hand is quite difficult. Simple things like that. It doesn't have to be a complicated dish, but something helpful rather than a box of chocolates. Chocolates are lovely, but actually we need the food more than we need the chocolates generally.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because but that's or the cake, that tends to go with, we'll bring a cake. I eat a lot of cake, but it's having that balance, I guess, with the actual nutrients that you need. And our
blood sugars are all over the place at that point. So actually increasing the amount of chocolate we're eating and cake isn't particularly helpful. I'm not saying don't eat those things, but actually trying to get those other things in is important.
I was surprised, and in fact I was surprised by after each birth how I felt, the impact it had on my body after you'd had that sort of elation period of actually suddenly how I felt completely zapped. And it seemed to surprise me each time, even though I'd been through it so many times.
Yes.
And just that nutrition and, and iron and what have you. So that's fascinating. That's really interesting. And
I think also to remember, if you are breastfeeding as well, your body's giving out a whole load of stuff on top of that. So, making sure you've got your vitamin D supplement, making sure you're well hydrated, you're limiting alcohol, you're limiting caffeine, and you will need extra calories if you're breastfeeding as well. It's not huge amounts of extra calories, so we're looking at about kind of 300 calories in those first 3 months. But actually thinking about making sure we're well nourished. And some people, depending on their weight initially, may go so much weight in breastfeeding that they go beyond where they were before they had a baby.
Sure.
And so they need to increase those calories even more. And whilst we're on talking about weight loss, I often think about, well, it took me 9 months to put this weight on. So don't rush that weight loss. Don't feel like there's a pressure to lose that baby weight. When you come out of hospital, you still look at least 6 months pregnant. Well, I certainly did. And there's so much focus, I think, because of celebrities on, I've got to lose this baby weight. I've got to look amazing. We want to think about nourishing our bodies first. Yes, ideally not adding on extra weight and ideally getting back to the way we were before pregnancy, but focus on the nutrients, focus on looking after you really first.
That's fascinating. We could talk all day, couldn't we?
Couldn't we? Aliya, it's absolutely fascinating. You've been listening to Aliya Porter from Porter Nutrition, and she's been sharing with us her nutritional expertise, and it's been absolutely a fascinating conversation. We always ask podcast guests when they come on to talk to us, what's the one thing, that's really hard, so that's a challenge or a question, is there one thing that you would want people to take away from listening to our conversation today?
So first of all, be kind to yourself. And within that, I want to be remember when you look at social media and you see the perfect plates that people often post, think of them as a picture postcard. So beaches in the UK do not look like the picture postcards that you get. Think of those Instagram pictures of baby foods being like that. It's not the everyday, it's not the thing that you're trying to achieve. We need to parent in a way that is kind to ourselves. And if you need help and you need guidance around something, reach out to someone to help you. There's no shame in asking for help.
Brilliant, Aliya, thank you. On the show notes for today's podcast will be all of the links that we've been discussing as we go. So there's some really helpful and handy resources. Don't forget to subscribe to the Family Health Podcast, because it means that on your chosen listening platform, the weekly podcast will drop in. And you don't even have to do anything. How good is that? Don't forget also to follow Mini First Aid on socials. And you can have the option to subscribe to our newsletter, where we give you family health advice every week straight into your inbox. And my final request for you today is that if there are subjects that you would like us to talk to, find guests, find experts, family health subjects that you would like us to cover, please don't hesitate to get in touch, because you help us to drive to bring you the family health information. Now, that's everything from me today. Aliya, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been listening to the Family Health Podcast by Mini First Aid. Thank you for listening to Family Health by Mini First Aid. I hope you found our podcast really useful and informative. If you want to know more about Mini First Aid classes, courses, qualification courses or first aid supplies, please do visit minifirstaid.co.uk or look us up on all your favourite social platforms at Mini First Aid. And just a little reminder from me and our sponsor, Things Happen, that if reviewing your life insurance is still on your to-do list, take time to get in touch with a Things Happen advisor today.